Okay, you and me, Steve. We're in it.
How are you, Drew?
Great.
Good.
We're finally moving into I think the most enriching and deep part of all this. And you know, this whole podcast is the idea of life and leadership conversations that go deeper. And this, I think, we're going to unpack and introduce today the inner circle. And if we go back to that, assignment of imagining a bullseye with three circles, and the inner circle is true self. The next circle is the unwanted selves or identities, and the outer circle is the false identities or selves. And I originally, when I wrote my little workbook, put selves for each one, but I'm wondering, to me, it sounds maybe more accurate to say that true self is a self. It's our self,
Yeah,
the one and only self that we have. And then the other two circles are identities.
I like that.
So they're a little, it's
That.
different. I mean,
Yep.
verbiage probably
Yep.
matters, but I mean, but I think that's what we've just moved from our identities that have shown up in our lives for various reasons, like we unpacked. And now we're heading into that really sacred space of true self.
Yeah.
And I think that I touch on the idea that it's a sacred spiritual place for most of us. It doesn't necessarily have to be. If you don't have any belief system, you could say, well, you can't deny the fact that your DNA, combination of DNA, is unique to
Yeah.
the universe, technically. And so you can look at it from the lens of not spiritual and just that, hey, I'm a better leader if I know who I am and can stay in that lane and make decisions and influence people from that space than if I go to these outer circles where all these various identities show up that aren't really me.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah, it's where your core wisdom comes from. And making wise decisions is always always smarter than than using those other outer circles, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I thought I had some quotes, but I mean, they're all kind of Christian. But I think that's because any quote you might see from any of the faiths is going to have the faith embedded into it because it's a mystical kind of
Yeah.
a sacred space. So, I mean, Thomas Merton said, there's only one problem on which all my existence, my peace, and my happiness depend to discover myself and in discovering God. And then Richard Rohr, who's written a bunch of stuff on the progression of life and moving from a warrior to a sage or a wisdom person, is your true self is who you are in God and who God is in you. It is your deepest identity and self, or only self, anchored beyond fear and illusion. So I think those quotes kind of sum up that idea, uh, albeit from a spiritual perspective
Yeah.
of this is the core of who we are.
Yeah. Yeah. It's one soul if you want to think of it that way. It's really who we intrinsically are. I'd seen a thing by and I can't quote you the numbers, but I'd seen a thing by Neil deGrasse Tyson, and he was talking about DNA and how unique everybody's DNA actually
Mm,
is. And it's just it was mind-boggling to me of the randomness that we show up at. So embracing how our true selves, our true DNA, our true, what we're comprised of, is just powerful, just super powerful. Yeah,
yeah, well said. And I think that you also said the S word, the other S word, which is soul. And
yeah,
it's so moving to me when I read old accounts of, how many souls were on the airplane, how many
yeah,
souls were on the boat. They talked
yeah,
about the head count was souls. And
yeah,
so that's a powerful reminder of that as well.
yeah,
Um, the definition that I was thought of is it's the true self is the essence untouched of who we are, untouched by fear, shame, and striving, etc.
I love that. Man, I love that. It's us in our purest form.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
and I think the thought came up is like, well, how do we know?
Yeah.
How do you know? Like, how do you know? How do you know if you're in that lane? If you're in the lane that you were, you know, designed or DNA uniqueness showed up as? How do you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And for me, it shows up when I'm calm, I'm at peace, I'm able to think, I know when I'm thinking rationally and when I'm thinking in a hyper way. I know that there's an inner peace that you have when you're in that, you can call it in the zone, if you will, but when you're in that zone of true self, there's an inner peace that you have and you can have chaos going on all around you, but you have an inner peace when you're there. And
Mm,
it's an amazing thing.
yeah, I beautifully said. I think the two things that popped into my mind were one, read the energy. And we suck at reading our emotions, right? But to know and touch base with, is this a moment where the energy is positive or negative? Is this a moment where the emotion is positive emotion, fill in the blank, or negative emotion? Is
Yeah,
often a barometer or a temperature of whether
yeah,
we're in true self or not.
yeah.
Um, and I think the other thing is, yeah, I lost my train of thought. Yeah, maybe we'll come back. But I think that it's what I call BAMs, breath away moments.
Okay.
Like, so when
I
we
love that.
are, so oftentimes, as you know, when you coach people, the kind of one thing you ask is, what's been a peak experience since last time, a victory or peak experience? And the reason behind that often is, from a coach's standpoint, is let's unpack that to discover whether your true self, when was your true self showing up for that peak experience? And it's a peak experience unique to you because your true self was probably in there.
Right.
And so some of this discovery is that, what are those moments in your life? Hopefully they're more often than not that take your breath away, that you
Yeah.
just go, you feel it, right? That peace.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It I love the analogy, still going back to it, of being in the zone. And and if you can't figure out if you're in the zone or not, you're not. It's one
Yeah.
of those that if you have to sit there and go, okay, I've got anger, I've got rage, I've got tension, I've got this going on, and it blanks you out from that zone. And if you can walk away from that for a second and go, am I in the zone or am I not in the zone? And if you have to ask a question, you're not. When you
Yeah.
have that inner peace and you go, I'm in the zone, you know immediately, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well said.
Yeah.
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 And then lastly, on the topic of kind of saying, what is the true self? The thing that it popped up was Michelangelo, for all people. It's like, he said, I'm carving away things that aren't David, when he did the sculpture of David.
Yeah.
And that's what we've been doing in this podcast, in
Oh,
this,
I
you
love
know,
that.
the I in the end of
Yeah.
Inspire, is the idea that we've spent some time, I hope, for everybody to carve away those false and unwanted identities
Yeah.
to get to the David inside,
Yeah.
yeah,
The beautiful creation we are,
yeah,
honestly. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let me ask you this. This other question is like, now we've kind of looked at the true self. I think most of us know there is some kind of core to us. Um, why does true self matter?
Wow. Why does true self matter? Huh. It for me, I mean, it's what you're created to be. It's your purpose in life. It's the why you're here. Um, it's not all of those other things. It's what you're intended to be. And you again, we can get back to spirituality, whether you believe you're here randomly or whether you believe you're here for a purpose. Ultimately, that that creation that is you has a unique design, a unique purpose. It fills a unique need. and you never know the unique needs that it's filling in everybody's life as you're influencing them, and hopefully when you're in that true self, making their lives better. But that's it's the why we're here. It's
Mhm.
really answers the big question of why, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's great. The thing that came up is kind of it's almost like a developing a business vision. It's like I always tell my clients there's two hurdles to developing it. First is actually having the time and putting the energy in to create it, which we are going to unpack in coming episodes. And once you got the animal, and it may be a draft and it's a process, the
Yeah.
second hurdle is embedding it, like actually using it effectively to make decisions. And I'm reminded of Daniel Harkavy, who I love his quote about leadership. It's the decisions we make and the influence we have. And
Yeah.
certainly, tragically, well over 80% of the time, the decisions we make and the influence we have are coming from these false identities.
Yeah. Yep.
And so this is an opportunity to
Yeah.
actually be, our Steveness, our Drewness is showing up in that core and saying, I'm making decisions and I'm influencing in this beautiful space where I was designed to lead.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I love the idea of the business vision, and my one of my last boss was phenomenal. You would go into him in a one-on-one and you would ask him a question and he would immediately go over to the wall where the business vision was and go, and he'd move his finger down through the business vision and he'd tap on something and go, that's the answer to our question right there. And he really led, he's the strongest leader I've ever seen from a business vision, but every decision he made was from that business vision. And when we can get ourselves to start making our own decisions based on our true selves, the things that we can unlock are going to be amazing.
And I love you brought that story up. That's one of my favorites. I
Yeah.
use that still with clients. It's
Really?
just, yeah, it's such a
Okay.
powerful illustration because I think it's like, oh, in big decisions in life,
Yeah.
if we could pause and align and say, this doesn't
Yeah.
fit with who I am, and this isn't
Yeah.
gonna, over here gives me the energy and the value, all the things that are me, and over here that doesn't fit with me, that doesn't align. What a great illustration of
Yeah.
that second hurdle. If we can get past that, then some really amazing things happen.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think the other thing that comes to mind is the why we're talking about this is it also creates resilience in us.
Yeah. Yeah. It does. It does create resilience. Resilience and confidence kind of go together in some ways. And that if you at first you don't succeed, you try again, that it gets you the power to get up off the mat and say, okay, that one wasn't didn't work, but hey, I'm capable, resourceful, and whole. You quote you. Let's get on and change the decision and move in the right direction.
Yeah,
And this is what the core values tell me to do. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that we've also talked about to me, there's that big toggle between our brokenness and our belovedness. And this is the space of
Yeah.
belovedness.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Um, so you want to get into what we're going to cover and what that might look like.
Yep. Let's do it.
Um, Permission to lean in.
Okay.
Well, I'm talking to both of us, I guess. I think I think you and I've done the work, but I'm going to redo it just to
Yep.
but I think there really is, maybe we're going to put ourselves to the test. We're going to actually start with, values clarification exercises, and we're going to go through them and then show up with our homework done to share with people what are some examples of value clarification exercises. And just for today's purposes, and I'll repeat this again probably in our next podcast, is just values versus, I don't know what other people, conviction, you call them what you will,
Right.
but I always like this illustration of a lot, many of my clients say, hey, Drew's really trustworthy. And I think that's cool, but that's not a word that excites me.
Right.
But if you say, hey, Drew, you inspire me, then that's a word that excites me. So part of this discovery is what's that word salad, that word cloud that encapsulates.
Encapsulates.
Thank you. Encapsulates, missed the S there. The true our true self, the combination of words that not just aren't just descriptors of our strengths and what people think about us, but more deeper, the words that come off the page when we read them and we get so
Yeah.
excited about. Those are probably words that describe part of who our true self is.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I love that. Okay, I'll accept the challenge. We'll go through it together.
Yeah.
And I love that exercise. I mean, nobody get home, who's listening to this gets to listen to our pre-meeting, but we talked about exactly this in our pre-meeting when we talked about, and I told Drew, hey, I've come up with my mantra, my statement about myself, but I'm not quite sure how I got there. I kind of got there by luck, and I'm feeling like, now I need the step by step, and that's exactly what you're introducing here is, okay, how do we get to step by step and how do we confirm it? And
And
I love this
yeah,
exercise.
new
Yeah.
stuff's going to show up.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think part of the luck wasn't luck, and I think you did stumble or come across some true self
Yeah.
part of you. But I think it's a fun exercise. The
Yeah.
exercises are meant to be fun, and maybe we'll give a little grade on how fun they were for us. But um, in the opening of a description that I send to my clients, one of the things was a quote from Oliver Wendell Holmes, which I think was a Chief Justice or one of the
Yeah.
Supreme Court people. Too many people die with their music still in them.
Oh man.
And this is what we're talking about, the music. We're
Yeah.
talking about our song, our
Yeah.
unique song that's filled with all these words that come off the page to us and have deeper and richer meaning for us in combination than they may for someone else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That one hits me right between the eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you and I both have
Your
lived
music.
long enough to see people that aren't either, don't even know their music
Yeah.
and are living without using it if they do know it. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
With untuned instruments and everything else.
right, which is all false identities and
Yeah, exactly.
unwanted identities. And then the other, not in any particular order, the other things that I hope we can weave in and cover subsequent sessions are purpose statement. Like, how do you create one? What
Yeah.
does that look like?
Yeah.
Um, Mine's still in process. I just kind of retweaked mine, and it's kind of evolving. But so that's a fun discussion. The other one, which is from a book called it'll come to me. I'll if I remember, I'll put in the show notes. But this guy creates an anthem, and it's just a beautiful exercise to create this. What do you wake up in the morning reading to yourself to remind you of who you are? And so we're going to talk about creating an anthem,
Cool.
which just happens to coincide with that music discussion, right?
Exactly.
So yeah. Um, and then there's strengths. We have to talk about like what what are our strengths? What do those look like? And we'll have some tools and tricks to kind of further define your strengths. Sage powers we got to talk about because positive
Yep.
intelligence has been a large part of this. Um, and then I think a couple. What else am I missing?
Just looking
Um,
really quickly, but I want to just go off the sage power for a second. I still think Sherrod had that spot on. I think that sage brings the right place of inner wisdom, right? That's what the sage is always there for. The old man or the old woman of the village that you go to, who's seen everything, done everything, and always seems to know the right answer. I mean, that I just I like that vision of tapping into your own personal sage. I think that,
yes.
yeah,
And to me, the sage powers are really like once we get clarity around our values and our strengths, then the sage powers are, and I think I just thought of unpacking another coach thing, a meta skills wheel around those sage powers to help us remind us of the intentionality it takes to show up in a meeting,
Yeah.
as our true self.
Yeah.
Um, and then another like big picture thing is like either the metaphor of either a mansion or a boardroom, and starting to fill out all the different identities and true self parts of our metaphoric mindscape. Or if you imagine
Yeah.
our mind
Yeah.
is a mansion with all these different
Yeah.
rooms,
Yeah.
and kind of thinking in that context is another
Yeah.
fun thing. And then I think always tying it back to the idea of self-compassion, Kristen Neff stuff, and realizing we've got to get in tune with who we are and be okay with who we are and actually maybe even like who we are. Imagine that.
Yeah, I don't I we talked about this, but I don't know that a lot of people get there, right? They get so tied up in the stuff that's the outer circles that they never really get to see their inner self and really uh, like their inner selves, let alone love their inner selves. Yeah,
And I think there's in at least in Christian circles, there's this like, well, you can't self-love. Oh my gosh,
yeah,
that's so.
yeah,
But the reality is, God's saying He loves us like there's no one else on the planet. At least
exactly.
Augustine's phrase or
Yeah,
quote is
yeah,
that. And if that's true, that there is this divine being that really cares about us and loves us, then
yeah,
why are we all day long listening to various messages in our head that we wouldn't talk to our kids or our spouse
no,
like that,
no,
but we do it all day long. So
yeah,
this is just this opportunity to kind of pause and say, it's okay to say, I'm all right. Like
yeah,
maybe I'm lovable and that might be
yeah,
okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
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 And the spirituality standpoint, that true self is what God loves.
Yeah. And there's this
That's
really
really the
still,
connection he wants. Yeah,
yeah, there's a really small, still voice that we forget to listen to that's saying, hey, get in your lane, buddy. I designed this lane for you. I designed this little beautiful space for you to make decisions, to lead, and you're never in it. What's going
yeah,
on?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
We spend half of our time in the ditch and half of our time in the oncoming lane.
yeah.
Yeah,
And I think that the ditch part is that the studies show that 50% of our brain is on autopilot.
yeah,
So I think that we are stuck in, and don't beat ourselves up, but we are just on autopilot.
yeah,
And so part of the discussion is that second hurdle of how to get out of autopilot, discover our true self, and then use what we discover. And that's the part where intentionality and where we need to, actually go to, instead of being in did you say the ditch?
yeah. The ditch. Yep.
Be in the car and say, hey, this is a beautiful space or whatever
Yeah.
you got to help me with that metaphor. I
And
just,
I got a wide open lane and I can
yeah,
go. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Yeah, I'm not running into mailboxes or trees or fences or yeah, I've got a
yeah.
wide open lane. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful scenery and I can go. And I'm
And
safe.
no distraction. Yeah.
No, yeah, no distraction. I'm safe. Yep.
And I think the thing that popped in my head was also I read recently a neuroscientist, neurosurgeon from Stanford wrote a book that I read, and he said there's two things your brain does: file cabinet and bloodhound. And the file cabinet is if you feed your brain, like we're going to do in the next
Yeah,
coming
yeah,
episodes, with a clarity of true self, which is what we're going to be doing. But if you feed your brain any information, then your brain takes that information and becomes a bloodhound with it. And so, like, the classic example is you start looking for a new car and you want a red car.
right.
You go out on the road and all you see, your bloodhound takes over and sniffs out red cars of the same model that you want. So ideally, that's part of this process is first filling our file cabinet, our brain with new and cool exercise and information to get clarity around our true self,
Right.
and then letting that bloodhound run and start to go, oh, this
Yeah.
is my true self
Yeah. Yeah.
in its native habitat,
Yeah.
so to speak.
Yeah. This
Yeah.
matches my values. This matches my values, and this is how I can connect with them.
And
Right.
then you can actually, instead of stumbling along life in, you know, random occasional peak experiences, you can
Right.
actually say, I know what a peak experience is for me, and I know
Right.
why it shows up in that way. So now I'm going to look for those.
Right.
Yeah. So
Right.
maybe even a more fulfilling life, a more joy filled life, if we unpack our true self.
I wouldn't even put maybe in front of it. For sure is.
Yeah.
For sure is.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's mind blowing to me the difference between having that noise of the two outer circles and then being able to put it away and be in the space of your true self. It's honestly where a lot of true happiness comes from, right? Internal
Yeah.
happiness comes from. It's a
Yeah.
great space. Yeah.
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 So we have episodes. I think we're going to just, this is going to be our next part of our journey is
Yeah.
unpacking this. And we're not going to, go too fast. We're going to hopefully go just the right pace and unpack. And by the end of this, we will hopefully, all of us that are on this journey together will have greater clarity and understanding of what our true self is, and then be able to make decisions and influence people and lead through that lens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love it. And just, for everybody who's listening to it, it's it's not a one-time deal, right? We're not taking you on a linear path here. It's it's iteration after iteration after iteration, going back to the outer circles, figuring out, hey, I got some other noise coming in. What is that noise? Figuring out how to deal with it, and then going back to the inner circle and rediscovering yourself over and over and over again. And
Yeah.
and ultimately, hopefully for the believers out there, your relationship with God. So
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
I love that you said that. I mean, I've been doing this work and I have a very long, robust list of values. And I've been doing it for, I don't know, almost decades now, at least
Right.
15 plus years. And I was reading a quote or a book, and I always say to my clients, okay, shut me up, but here's a crazy Drew idea. And I use the word crazy, and I like always, I never really thought much of it, but then came across the word quixotic.
Yeah.
And I think that's the better word. It's quixotic. I have some, I chase after windmills sometimes,
Yep.
and I say some things that are just kind of crazy wild, but in a good way. So maybe quixotic is a better word. So from now on, I'm using that instead of crazy Drew ideas to say quixotic ideas.
Exotic. I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Was it my donkey and my sword? Is that what I need to go get now?
Yeah. And keep chasing.
Keep chasing the
She's
windmill.
well, you as you said, keep discovering,
Yeah.
because it's first draft's great, and we are really eager to help give people space to
Yeah.
create a first draft,
Yeah.
and that's 80+% of the work, maybe even higher.
Yeah.
Once that draft's in place, as you say very astutely, it's a process. And I think our perfectionism, our outer circle identities of perfectionism and maybe even like a hyperachiever kind of
Yeah.
get in there and go, it's got to be just right, it's got to be this, it's got to be that. Nope, we're gonna connect some dots, and the dots that connect that are meaningful, you get those down, and then if they need tweaking, like you said, years, days,
Right.
months later, whatever, that's great too.
We tweak them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Good.
Very cool.
All right.
All right.
Looking forward to the adventure.
Me too.
All right.
Full
Bye
of
for now.
full of yeah. Discovery and transparency.
Yes, that will
Yeah.
be that's our jam though.
Yeah, it is.
All
Cool.
right.
Thanks,
Bye.
Drew. See you.